Hello, Forecaster here, and we are back for episode 55. And I have updated Railcraft, and the latest build of Railcraft has a bunch of interesting bug fixes. For example, drones will now no longer take more fluid than they can put in the target tank, and thus get stuck waiting for more space to open up so they can empty their internal tank. They will also no longer try to get to frames that are surrounded by blocks and get stuck that way. But today we're going to continue working on the oil reservoir, and I have been working on the wall building program, or floor building program, and this is the current version of it, and it will now work on a column at a time instead of digging out the entire wall or floor and then put the blocks in. It now takes one column, digs it out, and then puts the blocks in, and then moves on to the next. And I won't go over the entire program, but it's currently not working as it's supposed to, and that is because of a bug with item variables. So these three pieces here are supposed to assign these items, and that is the tool in its broken state, which uses metadata, and the block we want to fill the area with, and it assigns them to three variables. However, the item variables don't work at the moment due to a bug where the item filter ignores the variable completely and just looks at the item filter itself. So I've had to put item filters with the actual items in them in all the places where the variables are, but hopefully this will be fixed in a future version. And all the area pieces now use variables as well, and we're going to have a look at that shortly. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take the GPS tools, and we're going to select the area we want to replace. So we're going to start with this bit here, and this is going to be point 1, and that is going to be point 2. Now I want point 1 to have the lower value, or higher in the case of them being negative, because the program can only increase the X or C value and so we have to have the higher value when they're negative, or lower value when they're positive, be 0.1. I'm just going to start at 0.1 and then increase the value until it reaches 0.2. So now we're going to open this remote. I'm going to shift right click with it, and we're going to edit these buttons. So this is 0.1, and actually first we're going to open chat, and I'm going to write these coordinates into Notepad so you can see them even when I have the remote open. Like so. Then we're going to open this, and point 1 is going to be -691 56 948, and point 1A is going to be the same as point 1, 691, 56, 948. Then point 1B is going to be the same as point 1A and point 1, but with the height of point 2. So we have negative 691, then 57, which is the maximum height of the area, and then 948. And then point 2 is just going to be point 2. This is the end point of the area. And the reason there are this many variables needed is point 1A and point B are the current working column of the program, and that is what moves from point A and then across to point 2, where the program will stop working. And point 1 and point 2 are what's used to check if the area has been completely filled with the target block, at which point the drone will go and commit suicide at the end location. So now we've set those. We're going to set the input and output position, which we want to be this chest here. So we're just going to 680, 58, 955, and then I want the endpoint to be above this hopper here. So negative 680, 57, what was 953, 953, and there we go. And finally, we'll want to so this is the starting position, and this is the end position. So we have X, Y, and Z, and to get to the from position 1 to position 2, the program will have to increase X. And as you can see in the remote, we have an increase X checkbox here. So if this is turned on, it's going to increase X. If not, it's going to increase Y, which means it's going to go, which I would have to use when I'm replacing this wall here, because it's in the on the Y-axis. Now there is a bug with the checkboxes where it's always off when you open the remote, even if the variable is actually set to 1. So if I take it and then close the remote, even if it's off now, I will know that the variable is actually on. Then we're just going to click these buttons one time each to set the variables to the values we configured the buttons to set. And these will light up, which will indicate that the variables have been set to something that is not 0, 0, 0. And after the program is done, the drone should set this set back to 0, 0, 0, but not these two, because usually we want these to be the same as before. So now I'm going to turn on the entity tracker so we can see what the drone is doing. And then we're going to place the drone here, and then it's going to get to work. I also have the drone use a mining drill now from IC2 instead of a steel pickaxe. It's a little slower, but I don't have to spend experience repairing the pickaxe anymore. So now it's going to dig out this column. You can see it says it's done digging. So now it will go and put the tool back in the chest, and it will get the target block. The name still says need glass because I forgot to update it. Then it's going to put the blocks in this column. Then it says move target, which means it's increased the variable with the 0.1 and A and 0.1 B to this column. Then it's going to go back, put away the blocks left over, and pick up the tool again. Then it's going to come back and dig out the this column, and I'm going to make a hole here in the glass wall so the drone will have an easier way to get to the tool chest, which I really should have moved. I should move this into this room, really, since the drone will be working here. But as you can see, it's replacing one column at a time, which doesn't matter that much in this specific wall, or really any of these walls, since they're going to be supported by the blocks behind these. But it would have mattered when I made these walls, because they were actually supporting the ceiling. So it's a little slower because the drone has to go back and forth a lot more than it had to before, but it's safer with the support of the ceiling, and it should. I haven't tested this, but it should be working the same with the floor. So it would use would work on one row at a time, and then increase. Which I probably have to use at some point. So, and then of course, as the drone is done, it should go and commit suicide over the hopper over there, which doesn't have any inventory under it. It just so last episode I had the hopper next to the chest here, but I found that sometimes the drone would actually the drone item would fall outside of the hopper, or the tool or blocks it was carrying would fall outside of the hopper. So when it's down in this pit like this, it won't be able to fall outside the hopper, and then I can just retrieve them from the hopper directly. So I'm going to come back when the drone has almost finished the replacing the wall. Alright, so the drone is almost done. It's going to go get the tool for the final column, take it out, then place the blocks, and then it should go and it should check the entire area using 0.1 and 0.2, and then when it sees that it's full of the correct blocks, it is going to go to the hopper and commit suicide. So now it should and there it says done, and then it killed itself and went into the hopper. So that is the current version of the program. It's a bit slower, but safer when working with physics. And I think it's done a good job. So I will put a link to this, the pastebin version of this program, as well as the remote layout. And importing a remote layout works the same way. You just paste the pastebin link in here and then click this button. And also we can now see that the all of these the labels for these have vanished because these have now been reset. So we would have to set them again before we could to have the drone work on a different area. Now, I've mostly been working on this between episodes. I've also made a new miner. So I made one of these or a few episodes ago, and then I went and died in lava and lost it. I'd also made another mining drill, which did not have the diamond upgrade, and I'd been using it a bit to mine some ores. So I plan to use this as well, but since I usually don't do mining on camera, we probably or you probably won't see a whole lot of that. I want to get 2 stone bricks for the hole in the floor over by the refinery. Should be enough. We can turn off the entity tracker now. It's a bit spammy sometimes. I could have gotten 2 for that hole as well. But now, since the drones will no longer try to get to the frames under the thermopneumatic plants, I can put these blocks back. There was something else. That I've forgotten. This tank is running low on fuel. That's strange. Alright. The refinery doesn't have any oil. That probably has something to do with it. This system is running well. We don't really have a shortage of LPG yet. We are running through it quite quickly when we're not getting a constant flow. So this drone is still stuck here. It probably has a bunch of fuel in its inventory. Oh, there it went. wonder if it'll come back. Doesn't look like it. Not entirely sure if the bug has been fixed. It does still sit here for apparently for no particular reason. But that might be because there was nothing else for it to do. I forget where I put it. I think I put it here. So that specific drone might not be able to reach the tasks over here. So its only job may be to supply this generator here and the boiler with fuel, so it's just sitting here waiting for a task. That might very well be it. I'm not sure why this has stopped swinging. Pretty sure that it used to swing back and forth. Yeah, so in between this episode and the next one, I intend to finish replacing the walls around here, and I'm also going to dig out more space here and put in these glass walls on this side as well. And I expect to be able to show you at least most of it completed by then. We can have a look at the cabling, which I've forgotten about. I hinted at it at the end of an episode a few episodes ago or so, and then promptly forgot about it. So you'll notice you can no longer see the cables, but you can clearly see there are cables going through the floor here. And before, there used to be these construction foam blocks like out here. So what I've done is I've made this, and this is an obscurator. It's a tool. It costs an advanced circuit and an advanced battery, and this lets you copy textures of things and apply them to construction foam. So currently it's holding a stone brick texture, as you can see, and if I right click this crafting table, it's going to open it. But if I shift right click the top of this crafting table, it's going to take the texture of the crafting table, and then I can right click. So here we have some insulated copper cable with construction foam on it, and if I right click, it's going to apply the texture it has stored to the foam, and the foam needs to be hardened, of course. So now I have a fake crafting table in the floor. Now I don't want that, so I'm going to change it back into a stone brick. So out here we have more of these, and I can hide them like this by applying the stone brick texture to them. And it's a very nice way to hide your cables, and you can even use it to decorate your walls, or build a structure out of them and then repaint it. So here we're going to switch to the marble brick texture, of course. Now, unfortunately, there are some limitations. So, for example, if I were to use this texture, now the actual marble paver block has a connected texture, but the foam doesn't support that, so it's just going to use the unconnected version of that texture. So what happens here is the cable goes down one block, and then underneath these blocks here. So this is the cable here, to keep the path looking the way I want it to. Those are not actual stone bricks. You can't copy a texture from a foam block. You have to take one from a real block, but you can take some textures that you normally couldn't use. For example, this here is a construction foam block, and it has the texture from a nuclear reactor on one side with the radioactive symbol, and a stone brick texture on the other. So some blocks you can take the texture off like that. Not that one. You can probably take this one. Yep. So you can take textures from certain things, and I can apply that there if I wanted to, and use them in as you wish. So not that one. You can take that texture. How about this? Nope. None of these work. You can see this is the texture I borrowed from for the sign over there. And you can probably take this one. Maybe something here. Yep. So here we have a transparent texture. Let's try applying that over here. Ooh, one-way window. So some texture you can do this with, some you cannot. And of course, copying a texture of a block and then applying it to a foam block costs energy, of course. I think it's 10,000 or so each time you copy or apply a texture. So I've almost completely drained my advanced backpack doing this. But it is it's a nice function. One thing I wish for is a way to store the textures. So each obscurator can store a single texture at a time, like this. So if I want to, say I'm wandering in the wilderness somewhere, and I find an interesting natural block with a texture I want, then I could take my obscurator and copy it, and then use it at home. But if on the same trip I found another texture, there's no way to keep both of them unless I have two different obscurators. And when I get home, I would have to keep the texture in the obscurators and couldn't use them for anything else, and would probably have to make more, because there's no way to store the textures. And the obscurators are pretty expensive, and making a lot of them is kind of inconvenient. Plus they take up a lot of space. So I wish there was a way to store the texture in an item, like for example a memory crystal that is part of Industrial Craft 2, or maybe even have the ability to copy textures from foam blocks, because if I shift right click this cable here, I'm not getting the texture that it has. So that would be nice. or maybe an electronic library of some sort that you can copy textures into and then copy them back into an obscurator as you need them. There are a few different solutions you can imagine for it. But now we have reached the end of episode 55, so I will see you in the next one.